All right, zig on the top. Today on the show, we have Brendan Canty. Brendan is a musician, composer, producer, filmmaker, and drummer. You might know him from the bands such as Fugazi, Messthetics, Rites of Spring, and Happy Go Licky, just to name a few. Brendan is the real deal, showing you that success isn't about making it to a certain benchmark, but the process of being creative and having an outlet where you can express that creativity and grow that creativity whilst in your daily life. And he found a way to make that a career. So Brendan started off drumming in a bunch of bands in the DC area and found himself in the band Fugazi, which ended up being one of the most influential DIY bands ever. And using that DIY ethic and creative hunger and process and routine he developed for himself throughout being in Fugazi, he found himself being a composer and filmmaker and making a career of it. Brendan's in a band now called the Messthetics with Joe Lally of Fugazi and Anthony Pirog and Brandon James Lewis. They're like a jazz fusion-y rock style band. And if you ever listen to Fugazi and you hear the prog like fusion jazz bits in between that space that's like lingering there like an echo, this is where that echo gets amplified. The Messthetics is an incredible band. They have a new album out called Deface the Currency, and it just shows the peak impact these guys have. So they've recently just added Brandon James Lewis on saxophone to this group, and it brings like this whole other dynamic to it. I saw them live at the Beachland Tavern on their last tour, and I was like on the side of the stage. If you've ever been to the Beachland Tavern in Cleveland, there's like this little lip on the side where you're like literally like you might as well be on stage watching it. And these guys just were locked in, and it was mind-blowing. It was such a beautiful performance. And this new album they have out called Deface the Currency captures that energy. They have a very slick new vinyl you can get of Deface the Currency off their website, and the album's on all the streaming platforms. And I highly recommend you guys go check out this record. It's incredible. Now, I've seen Brendan play in a handful of projects live. I saw him play with Deface at Now That's Classed way back in the day, which was the first band he sang and played in. I also saw him with Wayne Kramer on the MC50 tour, which is when the MC5 was doing an anniversary tour, the 50th anniversary, of Kick Out the Jams. So needless to say, I'm a fan of Brendan's work. This was a great honor to be able to pick his mind and share some time with him, and I'm very excited to share this conversation with you guys. If you dig the DC scene, you might dig some of the past guests I've had on the show. I've talked to Ian Mackay, Joe Lally, and I've talked to HR of Bad Brains, as well as Howard Wolfing. And recently I've talked to Mickey Lynch, who hosted the show where Guy jumped into the basketball hoop. It's a really interesting insight to the other side of the music world. And so anyway, if you can like, rate, review, subscribe to the podcast, any of the podcast platforms, it helps me keep talking to cool guests like Brendan and sharing their insight with you. So without further ado, this is my conversation with Brendan Canty.
Yeah, no, the record came out. I'm super excited about the way the record came out, and it was, it was really off the cuff, pretty much. It was not expected to be an entire record. We just basically went into the studio after being on tour, and it kind of just happened in a couple days.
Yeah.
So
okay.
A lot of first takes. We had no intention of actually finishing a record. It was just we had a few. We had all these things that we were playing live, and the band had a great tour, and we were all in a really good mood.
That's awesome. Well, that's a great time to catch it. Like, I was talking with do you know Mike Baguetta? He plays with Mike. Okay, yeah.
I've seen that. I've seen that band a few times. I really love them.
Oh, they're so good. Stephen Hodges.
Yeah.
Oh, incredible. But every time they tour, Baguetta basically is showing the guys new stuff to go in the studio right after their 50-date tour or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool. That band feels similar in a way that it's growing. Every time I see them, it feels like the proteins are building between them, and it's turning into a really tasty loaf of bread every time. There's so much more dynamics the last time. There were so many more dynamics the last time I saw them than the first time or first couple times. So that's really turning into something special, I think.
I agree. And it's cool with those guys to see more vocals and Mike Baguetta taking the songwriting kind of ship in a way.
Yeah.
So
being really ambitious.
Yeah. So with you guys, like, would compositions like develop just kind of sporadically through touring, or like were melodies?
Typically Anthony comes in with something that's really way the fuck out there. I mean, it's something that's like, yeah, he'll have like, he's like, I was fucking around with this thing on piano or whatever, and he'll have like, he can't even remember it. It'll be like sheet music or something like that he was messing with like the day before or over the weekend. Because we get together every Monday and Friday from about either 10 to noon or 11 to 1. And that's like our regular schedule. And we bring in stuff and record and basically just build towards a new record every time. In the same way that Fugazi, every time we got together, we'd just write and write and write. We did the same thing. Like unless we have a gig coming up, we're not rehearsing anything. We're literally just writing. So basically, a piece like that comes in. It's super complicated. No inherent structure necessarily, unless he brings in something that's like incredibly structured, which also happens. So he also has stuff that's like melodies that don't have structures, that are just like, he doesn't know what's going to happen underneath it or the length of it or where things happen, and then we can just play on it until something starts to happen, and that's really fun. Or else he comes in and he has like a lot of counting in his head. And he's like, oh, let's do this. No, then it has this extra bar here, and then it has like one, and you're just, and basically the challenge is to get from point A to point B. It's like like super through composed to the end. I mean, we could, at this point, we're like pretty trained monkeys, we can do it really well. We'd have good memories, me and Joe. But it's also like, it has to turn into something. Like there's a lot of things like that flying around, but it eventually has to turn into something that you can withstand, that can withstand the road or withstand playing 100 times, a year. And that's not everything. So that's kind of, hold on, I'm going to change this view so I stop looking at myself. But that's really, that's the main thing, that it gets to a point where it actually has a personality that reflects all of us, that everybody's happy with what they're playing, that it's, and we come up with stuff. As soon as you add other people to that sound, it turns into something really quickly. And then a lot of the stuff, especially for this record, was written with the idea that James was going to be playing saxophone on it. So a lot of the lines were like, like on Gestations or something. Like Gestations was particularly like kind of sounded like a, hyper deconstructed bop song or something like that. And it really made him, as soon as he brought it in, I was like, it made sense to me completely that it was like jagged bop, and then when the sax went on it, it was going to sound great. And it did. Yeah. I mean, it really came together when that horn was on it. I mean, the horn is a really amazing, validating instrument for a guitar. Like a lot of people will listen to a guitar and think of it as completely two-dimensional and have a really hard time taking it seriously in terms of a writing tool. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of, it just gets sequestered into the virtuoso rock camp. You know what I mean? And so people don't really take this writing as seriously. So when you put the combination with Anthony and James makes this like really great, beautiful sound, which is like the bell-like sounds of Anthony and the super warm tone of James's saxophone. It just turns into this other thing, and they play so well together that it just it elevates the melody, I think, to a point where I think it's hard to ignore it. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I really love the way it sounds. It sort of legitimizes the writing in a way.
Yeah. Well, it brings like, with James in the equation now, it brings like this whole other element to it. And like kind of listening to like earlier Messthetics like records, like there's this whole like spice that comes from that. And I definitely think it fills that void. Did they work together previously before working with you guys? Okay.
Yeah, they'd been playing in James's ensembles for like 10 years in different ways with like Jamie Branch, and they had a bunch of different things that they toured on. I don't know how, I honestly don't know how much. I know they met in a session, and then they had a lot in common sonically and, and personality wise. I mean, James and Anthony are both really lovely people, and really adventurous and smart as hell, both of them, and really, adventurous musically. So, I mean, I think that they had a lot of mutual admiration almost immediately, and so they would bring each other into different projects and play whenever they can. That world that they live in, both of them, there's a lot of that going on. I mean, there's most of it. I mean, I think James probably released 6 records this year or something like that. I mean, he just collaborates with everybody on the planet. I wish he was only in my band, but he would be incredibly frustrated, I think, if he had to play the same songs all year long. So I get him when I can, and he's become a great friend. He's really great on the road. He lives on the road, and so initially I was like, well, this is great on, in the studio. It's great live, but how's he going to be in the van? And, we've had a great time. So we've really become a family, which is really nice.
Well, and that's like a whole other aspect of it too, is can we put up with each other? But like,
yeah.
So then with initially, like, how did you meet Alex then? And like, was that through working?
Meet who?
Oh, sorry. I said Alex. I'm thinking. I'm just sorry. Usually I do my whole
Andrew.
Andrew.
I mean Anthony. I called him Andrew.
So I usually give my whole. We jumped right into it. I usually
Aloysius.
Give my preamble.
Aloysius. I'm just thinking of all the A names we could misname them.
Alan.
Apple.
Apple.
How did I meet Anthony? I think it was. Well, this band has been a band for 9 years, so it was about 10 years ago, and I was going to see. I see a lot of music every night here in DC, and I see a lot of different things. And one of the things that sort of lives in this town is this Telecaster jazz stuff, like hillbilly jazz. That's like Danny Gatton.
Yeah, I was about to say Danny Gatton. Yeah,
yeah. So he lives in that world a lot of the time. He plays standards and with Danny Gatton's old band.
Wow.
So they're kind of legends around here. So I love that. I love that part of DC. I always have. And I would see bands. I was started to see this band called the Road Tavern Troubadours, who was this guy, Dave Chappell, who was a lot like Danny. He plays like Danny Gatton, or similar. I mean, they're going for that thing that Danny excelled at, and they're excelling, but in their own way. They all have their own personalities, right? But Dave Chappell was an amazing player, and I went to see him, and then I finally saw Anthony sitting in with him with that band, or with another. I think it was either that band or another band, and I was like, "Oh, who's that kid? There's a young guy up there playing with these guys." And then I just started following him around, and we ended up playing shows together. And he's so quiet that I didn't ever get to really talk to him, but I saw him play in a lot of different iterations. Multiple times it's like the Danny Gatton kind of stuff, kind of band, and then I started seeing him show up with his wife who plays cello, Janelle Lapine, and that was like cello guitar, and I was like, oh, that's super interesting. And then he'd show up and he'd be opening up the show just like with a bunch of pedals, making noise, a 30-minute noise set. And I was like, oh, that's fantastic. So I just was like, oh, I really want to work with this dude. And then I was scoring this film called these Burn. I did a series called Burn to Shine, where I was like, we were demolishing these houses, putting bands in these houses throughout the day, and then demolishing the houses. And I had one left that had been left over for since like 2008 or something like that. We filmed it, and it was the Atlanta one, and we'd put it together, Christoph Green, my partner in that stuff, and I put that film together and we were going to put it out, but it needed music for the demolition scene. So then I got Anthony and Janelle involved in that. I said, hey, would you guys be interested in, just basically I'm going to run this 4-minute demolition, demolishing a house track, and we're gonna improvise to it, and we did it twice. We did it once through, and then we did it one more time, and it was done. And I was like, oh, these guys are great, really, really great, amazing players. Really, again, really great at improvising. Great, they both know exactly how to play, what they want to play at any given time. So, anyways, that was the start of it, and then. Of actually being in a room with them and collaborating, or him and collaborating. And then Joe had recently moved back from Italy and brought with him, I was, just trying to be in touch with him to see what he was up to and maybe try to figure out a way to play with him. And we were playing kind of his songs, his solo songs, and just me and him. And then I was like, and he was playing me some of this other stuff that he'd been doing over in Italy, and it was kind of like the Messthetics, if it was even more loose. So the drummer would be more like an improvising jazz drummer, and the only thing in the thing that would be solid was Joe's bass, really, and then it would be like Joe's bass with people kind of playing around and kind of being super jazzy, improvising loosey-goosey around him. So I was like, well, I said, oh, this stuff's really cool. And the guitar's on it. I don't remember his name, but it was great stuff. And and I was like, oh man, there's this one guy that you think you should meet. You'd probably really like him. And so we got together at my studio and we started, and immediately it just kind of took off. Immediately we were like, oh, this really feels like something, and, and Anthony had some ideas almost immediately he's like, well, let's try this. And I was like, oh, well, holy shit, that sounds great. And then Joe had some ideas. Actually, initially Joe was singing on a lot of stuff. And then he decided not to do that. And it just like immediately it became this thing, very quickly that was like a lot of ideas, a lot of sharing ideas, and I was recording everything. And so the first record was just basically immediately diving into trying to like write enough songs for a record, basically. And then we did, I was actually at the bar where we played our first show in front of like 30 people last night. Yeah. And I was yeah, teeny place called Galaxy Hut over in Virginia. But our anniversary is coming up.
Ba-boom.
Next year.
Yeah. Well, that's, it's like, so it's interesting, like with like those small rooms where you do your first gig. They hold like, if they exist for as long as like the band, or if the band outlives the venue, which sometimes I think happens more often than not here in Cleveland. But like, it's always that kind of special. This is where it happened, and like, but I find it really interesting because Anthony's such like an incredible. Like when you guys played at the tavern here in Cleveland, the Beachland Tavern, like I listened to the records up until that release, and like they're incredible, but just seeing everything happening and being right there on the side of the stage, because in the tavern they have that kind of like little lip where people like kind of hang out, and that's where I was, and it was just incredible to see like the chemistry between all you guys, and like how well, and at that point it was a well-oiled machine, because like I can't remember what date in the tour that would have been. Probably like it was in the middle, I think.
It was probably the number 90 out of 100 shows of the year, probably. I mean, we played a lot last year. Yeah. But that was a great show though.
That was,
really
it was
the crowd was great, and people were into it, and we were into it, and I mean, that, to be honest with you, I don't feel like we have bad shows, to be honest. I mean, really, we do something when we're up there that and push each other to the point to that level, I think, every night. I mean, there's no fucking up in this band. There's just, I mean, I guess occasionally there's some fucking up, but but typically those guys, Anthony's only gotten better at it, and same with James, and they play all the time, and so it's like the band itself is, again, like I was saying about that other band, about Mike and Mike's band, that we're forming proteins. We're getting to a point where we're like turning into something that's beyond any of the individuals. So
definitely. Like, and one thing, I guess, do you find like working with someone like Anthony who comes in and like gives you like, okay, there's gonna be a bar of two here, very like kind of like, not that all the compositions come to you this way, but when they do you find that easier or more challenging? I guess having all this like something to fit up to and like try to fit your voice in, or is it easier because okay, I know you want this here, cool, got it.
I mean, I don't find any of it that hard, to be honest with you. I mean, I enjoy the process, whatever it is. There's occasionally when it's like, if it's a really simple piece, where my job is to really kick back and just play drum, I find that a little torturous, but that's just me. Just like 4 on the floor, whatever. I mean, I don't like being a timekeeper, to be honest with you. I think Joe's actually better at that than I am. He can really lay into something and hold it down, and then I can actually fuck around a little bit on top of it. But it really, whatever it is that we're doing has to have the latitude to add stuff to. It always has to have the spice on top of it, I think, whatever it is. And now these days, the last record and this record, like, they're more written like jazz records. Like they're more like, here's a head, whatever, and then okay, launch. We do do the head, do a A part, B part, launch kind of thing, or whatever. But it is written into it. Not that those, not, I mean, on the first song on the first record, Mythomania, was like really pretty open-ended, dubby, thing for Anthony to just kind of like make textures on top of. So it's not like this band has been without that, but we have always, our first 2 records were written more like rock records without vocals. And then these are more like intentionally written to be more open-ended or not open. They're more open-middled. They're the front and back are pretty well locked, and then the middle is where we can take it for a walk.
Well, yeah. I think it was either Watt said it or he said that Iggy said it, that it doesn't matter how you what happens in the middle, as long as you have the intro and the outro there, the 2 pieces of bread. He described it as a sandwich. You got to have the top bun and the bottom bun and whatever goes in between.
It sounds like Watt, but
I think it's a Watt. Yeah,
he's a pithy dude. I think Anthony is in LA tonight recording with Watt.
No way. That's incredible. Yeah. Awesome.
I know. I don't know what that's going to be, but he wrote me today. He's like, I'm on my way to the studio. So, and Henry Kaiser, I think, is on that session. So
whoa. Okay.
It should be crazy as hell.
Yeah, it should be. Oh my God, dude, that's going to be incredible. Yeah. Well, to kind of dive in with like Deface the Currency, do titles come with these compositions, or do like after you guys play and add your personality and voices, do they develop a title that works, or does it like strike upon some?
That's a good question, because the titles came really late in this process. No, I mean they usually have really bad titles for a really long time. Like Rules of the Game was Mr. Wiggles for a long time. So, and so they all have working titles for a really long time. And then the sort of structure of the record, and actually it's really not until you record the record do you know what you're dealing with. And so there was this, like the imagery, like when the record happened really quick and is inherently kind of energetic, super energetic, and super reflective of the times that we're living in and who we are, and it felt like we needed to have visual representation and title representation that kind of reflected that. I mean, ultimately, when you have the tracks recorded once it's a piece, then you're like, it's sort of like the cover, making a cover of the book. You have to read the book before you can design the artwork for the outside of the book, So you have to write the book, then you have to, so the whole thing has to come together top to bottom. You have to have the whole sandwich done before you can name the sandwich. So then it's a really democratic process, and we really worked together on a lot of stuff. I can't remember if the artwork came before the title Deface the Currency, but Anthony is the one who brought in the Deface the Currency title, which is based on a Diogenes saying where he said it. And it worked really well, but it took it took a little bit of convincing for somebody in the band. And so I had to write something up. I was like, I think this is it. I was like, I love this. And I had to I had to write a defense of it, and then it was like, oh, okay, I hear it. Now I'm feeling it. And then the whole vision of the cover was I made sort of, if you look at the cover of our record, but without the cracked glass on it, it was, it looks more like a standard jazz record. And so that was also intentional, was to actually make something, I made that. And then James was like, well, here you can make it look like this. And then he sent me the effect of the cracked glass, and I was like, oh, there you go, that's perfect. We're making a jazz record on a jazz label, but fucking it up.
Yeah,
that's that works for me. Yeah, completely. So
that just piles onto the defacing of the currency, in this case the currency of the jazz standard.
Exactly, whatever it is whatever the zeitgeist that we think. And it's also, it can be to me, it can be really a positive thing. It's we all get pushed into genres, we get pushed into lanes, and it's and in our own heads, and then we have these, we get fearful of being able to move beyond that or transgress it. And it's you want to be able to allow yourself that not only allow yourself to do it, but set yourself as a challenge to do that, is to challenge yourself as an artist, as a musician, and as a group, and challenge each other as a group. So that's one thing that I really feel that was really important in the recording of this record, was just none of us really, like I said before, none of us really thought we were going to record a whole record, but the group went in, and we had an amazing time in the studio, and it worked. But because we were taking chances in the studio, we're like, let's try this. That song "Universal Security" is okay, we have the front end and blah blah blah, but we don't know what the fuck that song is. So we just did it, and we're like, oh my god, that sounds killer. And Don Godwin made it sound great, and Anthony was played amazingly on it. And it was and Anthony was like, "That's the thing. That's what I've been hearing." And I'm like, "Great, we're done." That kept happening all the way through that. Or I remember listening to what's it called? 30 Years of Knowing, no, not 30 Years of Knowing. It was I think it was Gestations. I'm trying to remember what the very end of it is. Yeah, at the end of Gestations, it gets all jacked up, and that wasn't necessarily on the record. but we did it. We did a take, and it was like not, and we didn't end it like that. And I was like, man, this just really needs an ending. You know, it needs a capper. And then we remembered that we had done this in practice and put this big giant 6 count explosion on the end. And I was like, that's what it needs. And so we did it and immediately had a destination to arrive in at the end. And so it kind of fed the energy of the whole recording at that point. So it was like these shoot from the hip moments that happen in the studio, which really only happen in the studio, really only happen when the 4 of you are there and it's being committed like for real in real time, and their stakes are super high, and everybody's having a great time, and, you know, high-fiving each other, and, you know, it sounds, and you have a great engineer like Don Godwin and a great studio like Tonal Park. It's like, you know, it's just a lovely chemistry for sure with everybody and every play and the place and all together. With the first couple records, I did all the engineering, and it was so much fucking work. You know,
yeah.
You know what I mean? You know what it's like. You just like, you know, you're recording, then you take your drummer hat off, and your ears are still ringing, and you go over and listen to the tape, and you're like, I think that was great. You know, I don't know. Let's check it out. But that process of running back and forth and listening to takes is like, so it's not what you want to be doing necessarily.
Yeah. Well, I think like I'd find it really interesting because like with a drummer, you're kind of like you're composing in a way with the group as far as like the direction or directing where this is going to go all the time. You know what I mean? You're always kind of in the seat overseeing everything that's kind of happening towards the audience in a way. Though it may not be your melody, you're cueing when we're going to it or how fast we're hitting it. So in a way, you're kind of always composing. And like for you, like jumping into like after Fugazi and playing in like a rock band and like jumping into a career where you were doing more like soundtrack work and composing on more than just, you know, well, I mean, you always were doing bits of everything even through all that, but like, does that make, I guess my question with that, do you to jump between those hats? Because especially when it's your own project is super exhausting, but do you find the skill set of drumming kind of aids the other skill sets of like production and composition?
I mean, it does, because I can play less. You know, I mean, if I was producing another drummer, I would have everything would sound really different. You know, I don't know. I mean, I think I think having control over that aspect of any band is, you know, really important. The layer, you can actually get the sonic, the sound of everything to your liking, you know, much easier if you're the drummer than you are if you're the producer in trying to get a drummer to play what you want them to. I don't know. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, no, that totally does, because instead of being like kind of tiptoeing around of like, I don't want to hurt your feelings by saying just do this and then playing it, you can just play it. Yeah. Like,
I think in my head I'm always producing.
Okay.
What I think, even when I'm writing, I write with the idea that I'm going to be precise enough to have it be on record. And that's live too. I mean, I grew up listening to, you know, I mean, I listened to things like The and things like that, the bands that have like, you know, kind of like hyper good production, and kind of absorbing that into myself. And then like even, you know, a record like, I don't know, like King Crimson's Red or something like that, where you can hear like the drums are so present in that, like anything there that's kind of drum forward, but not like stupid or not like obnoxiously stupid.
Yeah.
You know? I don't know.
No,
I don't.
I get what you mean. I get what you mean. Like where it's leading.
But I think you're onto something where it's like, because you're making me think like, well, yeah. I mean, really, I listen a lot. I try to listen to what the guys are conveying. I know it's hard for them to hear what's conveying, you know, necessarily. So it is sort of like you're the first listener every time somebody plays something for fresh in the studio. It was the same in Fugazi we would have a 4-track recorder going initially for years, and then it was an 8-track recorder. But the controls were always at my seat. So if we were getting somewhere or got somewhere cool, then I would press play and record and actually get it, try to lock it down so we have something to listen to later on. And then we'd mix it down and pick out the good parts and make songs out of them. And but I do think that sometimes those guys, they're so busy, like in Fugazi, they were so busy playing with, against each other, the guitars and coming up with stuff. And occasionally, it was a nice place to be, is to actually sit there and go, oh, this is how this can work. And actually, I was over at Discord House the other day, and Ian was playing me some of those tapes, just the practice tapes, all instrumental stuff. And it's just 4 tracks, but it already sounds like the band. Like immediately, it doesn't sound underproduced. It sounds, because there's you have the drums kind of tight, and then a full bass and 2 guitars, and that's it sounds so full. 2 guitars sound so full, and that's why in this band, having another instrument that kind of fills out the mix is a beautiful thing. I honestly wish James was here in town more often. We could actually write with him all the time. We'd come up with so much shit so quickly. But it takes, we only get to see him. Well, we write a lot on the road, to be honest with you. We get a lot of stuff done at sound checks. Things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I find that interesting too, because then you would have to be thinking about it, or at least having something while not, in between. And I don't know. I always find I have to jot something down or record something or memo myself before bringing it out. So to do it right in sound check, that one, I think puts there's a lot of, these cats they're playing all the time. So they're very comfortable and not afraid to try it and get it there, but also just comfortable as a unit to express something completely here's an idea, and not worry about it being shot down or, in a way that's going to.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, nobody's shooting any ideas down. I mean, we're all just looking for ideas, and time to play each other's music. So, I do find it's harder and harder to bring stuff into this band, though. I will say, I used to the first couple records, I was bringing stuff in, and I brought more stuff in even on the last record. But this record, I was there's a couple little moments that I can claim, but nothing. I'm being lapped by these guys. They're just so good, and they're really pushing it. So I'm down. I mean, I'm happy to do it, but I'm gonna have to be working on my solo record.
But that one, I think that's exciting because they have that, they've been thinking about it. They've got stuff to bring to the table. You know what I mean? I guess and because it seems throughout your whole musical career has been kind of bringing ideas to the table, and to be in a constant source of creation in the moment of coming up with stuff. And I was, because even I think I might get the name wrong, Blacklight Panthers.
Blacklight Panthers,
which is you guys just jamming and bringing ideas together, right?
That's just Guy and I in the basement. Yeah.
So
yeah, we were just putting things together, and then no, I mean, it's interesting because at bands where I'm not able to contribute enough, I get very frustrated with. So, I don't know exactly how to rectify that, but I do a lot of other things. I make the videos for the band, this band, and I do all I book the hotels and flights. I'm the manager.
Well, which is a total another that's its own art form, man. That's
yeah.
But I guess my question with that is have you, I mean, even just in the creative sense of always being in the room to have an idea to contribute musically, or have in the sense for the project to contribute musically, it sounds like it's been that way from the beginning. And I guess, do you find yourself kind of always bouncing with ideas within your own creative process, if it's writing a song or scoring?
Yeah, I play. I mean, I play and write every day, and my daughter also, who lives here, plays and writes every day. I mean, I think being, I mean, if I can put an idea down that I like, it's a good day, and I know that, I feel that. So I work towards that. I work towards like the completion, the idea of like of writing and completing something for myself. I also think that it's like it's just really important to your psyche to feel like you're exercising those creative elements, and I like my kids they all do stuff like that. They're all writers. They're all creative. They're mostly musical, but it's also poetry and things like that. And I think it's just like, it's not, it's sort of like not just a hobby, but it's like kind of like therapy, because it feels like what you are meant to be doing, It's the thing you want to be doing. It's the thing now, having said that, there's a whole bunch of real work in the world of interfacing with other people that is also real, but I find this like writing at home or like journaling kind of, if you will. But I find like when I go and actually, it's mostly nice to have ideas in your back pocket when you go and play with other people. Like I play with drummers. I'll play bass or guitar with drummers, and I have I always try to have ideas when I go to do things like that. I try to keep as many ideas around as possible. So yeah, there's. I think it's important. I think it's an important way to realize what you want, what you like, and where you can go with it. It's important to. I record. You see, you can. I don't know if you can see, but I'm sure my house looks like your house with the same amount of. So I have a double bass behind that door right there.
Hey. Da, da, da.
So yeah,
I get it. Well, so what does I guess your daily writing practice routine, what does that look like for you?
I mean, usually it helps if nobody's home, because I'm set up right now in my living room. Basically, I have half of my living room. So when nobody's here, nobody's here now, and nobody was here all day, most of the day. But even if they are, I mean, I usually doing it on headphones, and I play a lot of piano. So I have an acoustic piano, I have a digital piano with like everything in the, every sound in the world. So I like to play, that's probably anything I bring out later. And a lot of the soundtrack work I do is on piano and piano, drums, bass, a lot of those root notes. When you're doing soundtrack work, you can't really do guitars, because you will learn very quickly that nobody likes guitars in their soundtracks. they're always like, but I do like, just because it competes with dialogue most of the time.
Right.
But I spend a lot of time kind of orchestrating things and experimenting. That's mostly what I do, and writing a lot of bass lines. So. That's most of the time. I probably a bass player more than anything else. But and then sometimes I'll just go down and I'll just I have my drums all set up with mics on them all the time in the basement, and I'll go down and I'll just track pieces in my head on time signatures, and then bring them up and write around those. But it's mostly like counterpoint, I mostly like creating things and then literally just looking for things out of the ether. They're not really foundationally, like they're not musical like proper music theory or anything. I mean, I'm just really listening for things that are working between different instruments, combining instruments, and that's mostly what I do.
Well, I think
So does that make any sense?
yeah, no, that totally does. That totally does. And I think creativity is a muscle that needs to be practiced just as much as like any other technique or like fill in the usual strategy, you know, for any type of musical, you know, goal. But I definitely, because like I really relate to what you just said. When you complete something for yourself, even if it doesn't leave the house or the demo bank on like the 95 GarageBand files I have, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
even if it doesn't leave that, to know that, okay, I got a verse and a chorus and a bridge, I'll get that second verse tomorrow. Just, you know, just having that goal and setting it, and like really that makes the rest of the day like, whoa, we can go now. Oh, it's midnight. Oh, I gotta stop. Ah, crud. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, and if you're lucky enough to get another couple people around, you can share those ideas very quickly, and then you start to really, and you might have something there, you know. But these things come to you. I find that ideas don't necessarily come to me. I mean, sometimes they come to me in my dreams and things like that. But mostly it's when I'm sitting around with an instrument in my hand. And most of it is, you know, I still feel like I'm 13 years old, just trying to like, not trying to do anything specific, but just trying to listen to what the instrument can do, you know, sort of like Hendrix, you know. I'm like, who knew the guitar could do that until Hendrix did it, you know? So like that's what I think, and I listen to drummers that way too. I'm like, who knew the drums could do with that until Tony Williams did it, or Elvin Jones. You know, those guys took this thing that was, you know, really pretty standardized, you know, and then just really, you know, kind of deconstructed and used dynamics and used all these different, you know, methods to kind of like wake everybody up. And that's sort of what everybody wants. And really what you're looking for is trying to figure out who you are through the process. You know, what are the things that I love? What can I share with people that won't, not just that maybe they'll put them, I was going to say that won't put them to sleep, which is important. But I think more is like, what do I want to share with people? And I think that's kind of the hardest question, is when you're doing things by yourself. You're like, what is it about me that I want to share with people? Do I even want to share any of this shit with people? I think it's, to me, so much of this thing, so much of the practice of music is really being in a room with other people, and that collaboration is super important for me, but it's also, I think it's important representationally for the world. I think it's important for people to see people working together and collaborating with each other. And that to me is a huge part of my what inspires me, is actually that the same thing that always inspired me, which is like the miracle of actually people communicating without talking and being like playing with each other and elevating each other on stage, and hopefully if they're doing that, they can elevate the room and everybody can have an experience together that's really beautiful, you know?
Yeah.
That's the main thing for me.
No, that's the most, I mean, when it gets to that point, that's the most beautiful part. You know, we got this thing, and it just, and like, I think like almost it sounds like with where you guys are at right now with the Messthetics is going into the studio and being able to kind of just have that happen. Okay, we went in there, we messed up, and we killed it.
I visualize people being there when I'm there. So I visualize the crowd in front of me when we're performing in the studio. I feel like it should be the same exact energy that I have when I'm in front of everybody, you know? And I think that's why this record is special, because it did feel like that all the way through it, you know? Like, it was really easy for us to trick ourselves into thinking we were on stage in Italy, you know, or wherever, you know, and had, you know, people, and looking in people's faces and having, you know, supportive and enthusiastic audience around us, and that we were all in the same room. So to me, yeah. We have a cat that looks just like that.
Sorry, yeah, this is my noodle.
He just came down from, his name is Buttons.
Aw.
And he's from Newfoundland. My son just moved back from Newfoundland, and he brought a cat with him.
Oh, that's awesome.
But he's only here for a couple months.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we have 2 other ones too. But Buttons is the newest, most hilarious one. Anyways,
so one like within that kind of like going back to that kind of like being a producer, like kind of being a drummer, hearing everything for the first time in a way, and like being in charge of like, or not in charge, but having the opportunity to record like when with Fugazi, when everything was clicking, and kind of fulfilling that role of producer and like overseeing things. Did you find that skills, any of those skill sets, like in that kind of like overarching view, had as like, did that benefit or make film any clearer or easier for you?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for sure. I mean, yeah. I mean, part of it is being more technically minded in general, like being an engineer. I mean, just understanding the technology of like Pro Tools or cameras and all. I still shoot all the time for different people. I work as people hire me to shoot stuff, so it's that's nice. And and understanding the big picture of it's sort of similar in the way, and you're really just but I think ultimately, like, the thing that made the filming kind of interesting to me was this feeling that we should be documenting musicians or whatever it is we're documenting. But it was this feeling that it was if you had the ability to record something, that you should, whether that's audio record, like a lot of my favorite like the Ethio jazz movement in Addis Ababa in the 60s, like if people hadn't, like if people hadn't surreptitiously almost, like recorded that, they were not supposed to be. I don't think they were supposed to be making jazz records necessarily at first, but somebody sat down and decided to record all these bands, and then the Derg happened and everything fell apart. But that evidence of that is still out there. It's still motivating people, and it's still some of the most mysterious, wonderful music on the planet. And so to me, I look at and this early punk rock is the same. It's like there's no reason if we didn't have somebody like Don Zantara in our town who had a 4-track recording studio in his basement, you wouldn't be able to. We wouldn't have any of the the Minor Threat records or the Bad Brains records or whatever. Like they were like he was the guy who was in charge of that. He fit the mold of having like it be affordable and. He not a dick. He's an understanding, older, interesting, lovely person who was just into watching people take chances. And so he's still a pal. I still love him dearly, and he's a great grandfather now, and it's crazy. But I think it's sort of like that's it's sort of like the onus is on us. If you have the ability, then it's on you to try to record people, and that transitions over into film. Film came out of like this feeling of loss when Fugazi stopped playing. I was raising my kids, and then we had other things, family things going on that made my life too challenging to be in Fugazi full time, and Fugazi didn't really want to be, or I don't think anybody wanted it to be a band that wasn't full time, really, it had behaved in such a way for 15 years, super high octane, super like motivated to work all the time. And so like having that or taking it down to a quarter strength didn't seem like the right thing to do. So when that happened, we just sort of put it on hold and sort of thought we'd get back to it. And we haven't yet, 22 years later. But it was, but at the time there was a lot of loss involved in that. And so the film was a way for me to insert myself back, and not just as a producer, but I mean, I could certainly, record and mix all these things that I was recording, but also to just to kind of be in the world of musicians and scenes and communities, around the country, and that was the most important aspect of it for me. And so we made that Burn to Shine system, which was like we'd find a house and we'd have one curator bring together 10 bands or so, and then film them all in one day, and then demolish the house. And it was like sort of heavy-handed metaphor there for creating something and losing it, all the time. It's become this thing that's like, to me, was what it was always meant to be, which is like a time capsule. And so 20 years on, it's been, we made the first one of those 21 years ago, and it's your cat's up on the shelf above you. That's awesome. That's such an orange cat. Super orange cat behavior. But now it's like I look back on those, and a lot of the people have passed away, a lot of the bands have broken up, and I just am super grateful that we went through the trouble to document it all. And so in that way, yes, it's all sort of from the same place, which is that I love playing music because it brings me into contact with other people, and it's exciting to the thing that we can share together and make together, and that alone is enough, for me to create a product out of it, to create a video or a movie or having it be something that you can use to communicate to the broader world is really exciting. Even if it's just making the videos for Messthetics, or or just collaborating on a band and making a video with them, or recording them. Any aspect of it that I can then share with people, and people can actually and it can actually add to the conversation, musical conversation that's continuously going out there in the world. I really appreciate to be. I'm now turning 60 in a few days, and it's the fact that I'm still involved in the dialogue at all makes me really happy, because I really enjoy doing it.
Well, it's like, that's incredible, and I think it's incredibly important, that sense of community, right, and being able to be a part of one. And when you're a band that has eventually developed some following, one cool thing you get to do is you get to bring other people on and be like, check out my friends. You know what I mean? And
sure,
in a way, that's a really cool way to give back to everyone, is to document them in this place that ultimately would be destroyed. That's such a really cool, time, just a moment of time that's right here and will always be right here. And kind of going back to the sense of being able to contribute creatively, you know what I mean? I can see it incredibly fulfilling. And happy early birthday.
Thank you very much. I can't believe it.
But I know it's it makes sense, especially coming from right off of something that is, I'd imagine, from what I've read and what I've heard and about Fugazi, how intense it was, and just to be constantly in the state of creating something new and presenting it and sharing it, to be okay, now what? You know what I mean? You get primed for any type of schedule like that. So I think that's sorry.
No. It's interesting. Once it, when it went away, I was also doing all the film work was great, but I was also doing a lot of soundtracks for films for documentaries and all sorts of stuff for like National Geographic and Discovery and stuff like that. But I was also just raising my kids, for 20 years. I mean, that's basically, my kids are now 28, 25, 23, and 18. And it's like, that was, the first, I had 4 kids under 10 that was totally insane. And it was expensive. And it was like, I had, the whole thing I had to work really, really hard. And as did Michelle. And so that, there was no plan necessarily of like when to get back into music or how to get back into music or if to get back into music, but it just it always kind of like stayed in my life through all that period. I worked with Bob Mould for a little while, and then I did the Burn to Shine stuff, and then I did films, with Wilco and films with different bands, and produced some records with like the Thermals and stuff. And then eventually I got back into playing and writing with my friend Rich Morell in a band called Deathfix. And then I eventually got back into it playing drums with this band with Doug Kalmeyer in a band called Super Silver Haze, which was just super trippy, us and his wife Monica doing video. And that brought me back into playing more because it was a little bit more like Messthetics. And come here, cat. He's that's meowing so loud. That turned into this 10 years ago. And so it's like, I don't know. Now I clearly am doing things in 15-year increments throughout my life. So we'll see how long this goes on. But it's been this has been a project that, because Joe and Anthony are such lovely people to play with, and that it's been something I'm willing to work for and work every day, keeping it going. And hold on a second.
You're good.
Can you hear him? He's just running. You know what his problem is.
I can't hear him now, but that's what my little dude was doing. I was like, God. But like, I'll clean up any cat meows. Yeah. But like, I think so. The first time I saw you play was with Deathfix at the Now That's Class, which is now No Class.
Oh my God, I can't believe we were at that club.
Yeah.
That was our first show out of town. I was like,
really?
Oh, wow.
No.
This is crazy. Yeah, it was my first show I'd played, in that band period. But it had been years since I'd played a club especially in Cleveland. So yeah, that was wild. That was a wild place. It had a skate ramp in the middle of the room.
It sadly doesn't anymore, but
yeah,
they got rid of those probably for good reasons. But
it was called Now That's Class.
Yeah, now that's Class. What? Now it's called No Class. No Class.
I like Now That's Class.
I know, but I think it was different owners. I don't know, but I remember that show and like. I had a question with Deathfix. Did any of those tunes evolve from tunes from CYP? What's that? CYP. Let me pull up my notes because I'm gonna mess up the title here. I'm not gonna do that again. Or sorry, not CYP. YCP. Youth
Courtesy Patrol.
Yeah.
No, Youth Courtesy Patrol was when I was 14 years old. No, that was before I sang for that band, but no, none of them developed from that. They really just developed because I had a studio that I had built out back when we had tons of warehouse space in this town, and I had this big studio for 10 years. It was like 3,000 square feet for $1,000 a month, and I just rented half of it out to some artists. So it was like basically super cheap. And my friend Rich Morell, who played with me in the Bob Mould band for a couple of years. We toured all over the States and Europe with Bob, and he's a keyboardist and a songwriter. And he came along and he's a producer. He's worked with a lot of different people. He does like 12-inch dance records a lot of the time. He did like a lot of stuff with Yoko Ono and Cyndi Lauper, and like he did 12-inch dance record for like the house scene for years. Anyways, we became friends through Bob, and he played keyboards and I played guitar, and we just started writing together, and that's where that came from. And we just wrote a bunch of shit, and then got my brother was like, yeah, I was like, man, I don't know who to get to play in this band. And he's like, oh, just get the two best players you know. I go, okay. So I got Devin Ocampo on drums, who's amazing, and then and Mark Cisneros on bass, who's amazing. So it was pretty, and we just recorded everything at my studio, and it was really a blast. But most of the writing was just was Rich and I, and then we toured a long time, and then Devin went away. And then we recorded a bunch more, and we toured some more with Jerry Busher, who was the second drums in Fugazi for a little while and our roadie for the whole time. And then then Rich ended up writing songs with Cyndi Lauper on that Hollywood musical Kinky Boots. Do you know that? And then when that won the Tony, he sort of, was in that world and moved to the beach.
Okay, all right.
Lost my songwriting partner. But yeah, so he wrote a bunch of those songs on that musical, and it won the Tony. And when you win the Tony, you get there's a West Coast touring, East Coast touring, Las Vegas, New York, and LA and London. And so there's all those are going, and you get paid.
Yeah.
It's great. It's fantastic. But he's really one of my favorite people on the planet. So I wish he still lived in town. I'd work with him any day of the week.
I guess with working with him specifically on writing songs, how you guys did, is there any lessons that you find yourself still doing with current projects that you got from working with him?
I mean, he's a great keyboard player. He's also a great singer. His voice was just beautiful. And he put out solo records. Rich Morel did a couple that are just great. So I don't know. I think it's just, he was good at, he was just a good collaborator. It's really good to have somebody around you're excited to work with, and that just is really committed to finishing a song. That's the main thing. He's like, oh, well, let's just this, then that's it. Then we're done. Do this. Okay, now we need a middle eight. Okay, now we're done. And then we'd be finished. So, but he was also, really good at taking things that we were jamming on and turning them into tripped out, kind of arrangements. So a lot of that record is a little trippier.
There is a really cool sense of space in certain tracks.
Yeah.
One tune I had a question about was Dolly's House.
Oh yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about the creation of that?
I can't remember why or how. I think that was Rich's idea, song wise. I can't remember if we came up with the music beforehand or not. And now I listen to it and I'm like, oh, it really sounds like I Can't Wait by New Shoes. That's when I listen. Hey, do you know that song?
Yeah, I guess so. I didn't put that together until you said it, but yeah. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. The bass does. But I don't know. It was just there's no great meaning behind it except for so now it seems like I don't even want to call attention to it because there's so much because Kanye said such weird shit.
Yeah.
And there's a whole line about I want to be in Kanye's house. There's all these lines, but it's I just tried it. But I think it I don't really remember. I think it was just a vehicle for an idea that he had.
Yeah, because thinking about it, I was like, yeah, that's an interesting premise to want to be someone's how and it was all these creative people, you know what I mean? So I was like, yeah, just maybe
I think that's the main thing.
To see how the process, yeah, you know what I mean? What it would be like to be a fly on the wall in here, that's cool. It's a cool song. It's a great record too.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. Yeah, no, I really love that record. And we had a whole other record in the can, but it never came out. So we'll see. Maybe someday I'll put it out on just put it out on the YouTube or on the just streaming. No physical copies. But yeah.
Did so then the next time I saw you play was with MC50.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So like, where in the line did that happen, and what was it like working with Wayne Kramer?
Wayne was amazing. He's a really lovely guy who'd been through done all the work, all the rehab work and all that stuff. So he's like really, I don't know, weirdly like a father figure in a way when I was on the road with him, because he really was like sober and very together, and it was really, he just was very wise in a way, emotionally wise, and so it was really in a time, like every year is hard for for everybody. It's a really hard world to live in, but to be on the road with him and to have a buddy like him, and also to be the biggest MC5 fan on the planet. I grew up, like, they were one of the bands I collected, and so I was like, well, let's so I would tap him for information. He told me all sorts of stories that I never would have heard otherwise. And he was great. He's also a great fucking player. He was like, literally his tone was just so good, and he really dug into it. And he also was like, we were there to make it happen. He like making us run on stage as we were when we were introduced and things like that. So just old school Detroit showbiz shit.
Yeah.
It was just fantastic. And it was cool to see him live in the world. He had, he had his Jail Guitar Doors thing. We'd be in, Australia, and we'd go to prisons and talk to prisoners about songwriting, and he was really serious about prison reform, because he'd been through it. So, and that's where we first met, was at a prison reform, benefit, basically. So, he was lovely, and the band was great. Kim Thiel and Billy Gould, and there was just, everybody was just so great, and then the whole crew around the band was really, really lovely people. So no, we did it for 3 years until COVID hit. I was actually in New Zealand when COVID hit, and I was like, oh, we're fucked.
yeah. Oh my God, that was, yeah. Well, that was
there was like 5,000 people in line at the airport, because New Zealand was the only place that was actually doing testing. And I was like, oh, shit. And I had to bullshit my way up to the front of the line to get out to actually make my plane. And I was like, oh, this is a different thing. And then by the time I got home, it was, the shit had hit the fan for sure.
And it's at that point, you're like, I've just been around a lot of people. Oh my God, that's terrifying. At that point, but oh man, yeah, because I remember seeing that show. We saw you guys here in Cleveland at the House of Blues, and it was just an incredible, being an MC5 fan and just being able to see those tunes happen, and you guys were all super, super tight, and it was so cool, see that record come to life. Did you, I guess, through that, and the one great regret I have is I had a time set aside to talk with Wayne before he passed, and it never came to fruition. But that all to say, through this experience, did you ever end up doing any other projects, recording projects with Wayne or any of the cats from?
We did. We did a session. Wayne and I and Mike from Soul Coughing.
Oh wow, dude!
Yeah, we did a couple days of recording in LA, and that was really great. And then I did another session with him and Don Was and a trombonist from Detroit. I can't remember. That was in LA. They're both in LA.
That's so cool.
So yeah, they were really fun, really great in the studio, super fun. And then we recorded every show. And so he would, we listened to a lot of that stuff, and some of that stuff has come out. There's been Margaret has been putting that stuff out since he passed. So some of the live stuff. Yeah, it was really hard when he passed. It was very sudden, and nobody was expecting it. He'd had a couple bouts of cancer, but we all thought he was like totally fine, and then it just happened. A different kind of cancer showed up, and he passed very quickly. So it was really difficult, and I really feel terrible for his family. But he is really one of the most loved people on the planet, I have to say. It's really, he comported himself in a way that made him so people just adored him.
Well, when you're doing great work like what he's doing musically and like, with Jail Guitar Doors, how can you not love a guy like that,
Right, exactly, yeah.
We
had a lot in common. He had done a ton of soundtrack work, and so we had a lot to kind of bond with over that stuff,
Yeah.
I wish we'd done more recording, but we didn't. I think he ended up at the end doing the MC5 album, the last whatever that was, and he brought in Abe from Paul McCartney's band to do it. Yeah.
Shit.
I think that was
I
the
don't know
producer.
if I
think that was Brendan O'Brien. I think produced it, and I think that was his choice. But whatever, doesn't matter. It is what it is. I mean, if somebody else is going to get the job, I'm glad it's Abe because he's a good dude. I met that guy recently for the first time face to face at the. I went to see Paul McCartney up in Montreal.
Oh yeah,
I was backstage and got to hang out with Abe, and he's a big Fugazi fan, which is awesome.
Whoa.
Which is great because I'm a big Paul McCartney fan.
Yeah. Oh my god. Me and my fiance went and saw Paul in Columbus on this tour, and it was incredible. And Abe was great.
That was the same tour I saw him on.
Yeah.
I was like, man, this guy's gonna die, and I'm never gonna see him. I have to go see him. And my brother lives up in Albany, so I drove up to Albany. I mean, I flew up to Albany, and then we drove up from Albany together, and we basically were like two teenage girls trying to meet Paul McCartney. That's basically we're like pulling every string, every connection we could to be in a room where he might walk in.
Did you?
And we got in the room, but no, he didn't. But Paul never showed up. But Abe showed up, and we had a great time. And he's a really lovely guy, Abe Jr. So yeah, it was actually, and yeah, it was just a great camp, and they're like, Paul I've never seen him be shitty to anybody, and I've seen him be rad as shit to 1,000 people.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's incredible. Well, Abe, I'm remembering he was a ham up there too, man. He was killing it. That's a hard guy to play behind it and be noticeable. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
No, for real. For real. The band sounds good.
Yeah.
I thought the band sounded great, man. They've been playing together a long time. And Paul plays the whole show.
Yeah.
That's the amazing thing. He's incredible. His bass playing's incredible. His piano playing's great. His voice sounded 90% there,
Well,
I thought it was.
And I'd love that it was 90 because there's some of these big shows, are they singing the tracks? You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
There's sometimes even that first song, I'm like, I don't know, this is too good. But by that third song, I'm like, nope, there's some life in this voice. It's
they're really playing. He's really playing it, man.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Yeah,
it gave me a lot of hope.
Right? Oh, the one thing that I don't know if it took you by surprise. They did the explosions at God, what was it?
Yeah,
Live and let out of nowhere. It's just fireworks, and you're just like, what the fuck?
And his face when that happens is so funny. He's just shrugging. He's like putting his fingers in his ears.
Yeah, he knows it's gonna happen.
He's so predictable. He's hilarious. Oh my God, I loved it.
Did Wayne ever? Because Wayne was real into free jazz, and he had that free jazz record too. I think before in between that latest MC5 record, but
Lexington.
Yeah, Did like
it's a great record.
did like I mean, on touring and just being around him, did he introduce you to any like free jazz or jazz you weren't hip to that maybe has found its way into this current record?
That's a good question. We played a lot of like Sun Ra. We would play Sun Ra tracks, and Ray Charles. He loved Ray Charles. We would playing Ray Charles tracks. We covered a lot of stuff during sound checks, but no, not necessarily. Not necessarily. I mean, I think that there was. I think the stuff that I think he liked to jam. I mean, he liked to jam basically. So even if it wasn't free, he would just like to, play and take it somewhere interesting. And every night live was like that. So he really wanted it to be different and actually, improvisational, not like let's pretend, and he was, he really lived it. He really loved it. And, he did, he talked a lot about the records, the Pharoah Sanders records and the Coltrane records and things and the Sun Ra records that he really loved. But I don't think they necessarily, I actually am kind of bummed because I don't think he ever saw Messthetics, and I think Messthetics had got to this point now where I'm like, I really wish he was around to see this. I really think I think he'd really like it, and it's because it's turned into something that I think he would really like. So it's kind of bumming me out that he's not around anymore. Fresh,
right?
fresh bumming.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he definitely would have loved it. Oh my God, this whole that like when I was messaging you or emailing you about chatting, like I still that Messthetics show at the Tavern is such like an impactful show, man. Like it was incredible. Like there's no doubt in my mind that he would have loved it.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. If only there was a world where he could come back and show up at the Tavern in Cleveland, we'd be happy. But I want him to show up anywhere.
Yeah. A couple more questions.
I'm going to have to go pretty soon because I have to go down and see a friend play tonight.
Oh yeah, okay. Well, Brendan, thank you so much for your time, man. I really appreciate it, and thank you so much for the inspiration.
You can give me another if you have another question or two. I can do that. But,
cool. I have two questions, and then I mean they're kind of completely out of nowhere with this, but like, my band, I play in a band called C Level, letter C dash level, and we just tracked with, we did a tune with HR. And so, and it was wild and out of nowhere, and it was a really cool opportunity, and it turned out way beyond what I would have thought. But like, I wondered if like, just your experience with HR and the Bad Brains, like sharing a scene, sharing some bills.
I mean, they were really, really like important to me. Particularly, my sister was a little older than I was. She's 2 years older than I, and she would take me to shows. Was by the time I was 14 years old, and one of the very first shows I ever saw was the Bad Brains. And so and if you were lucky to see the Bad Brains in 1980, 81, 82, which I saw them a ton. They were clearly the best band that had ever existed in my head, and I still think they're the best live band that has ever existed. And so when you see them at that age, it's really formative, and it's not just HR that does that. I mean, it's the whole band. Everybody in that band is amazing, and Earl, the drummer, is fantastic. And so if you're a 14-year-old drummer trying to transition from being the singer of YCP to the drummer of Deadline, which I was doing, and you're surrounded by a bunch of other hardcore bands, but every one of the drummers in every one of those bands, from Minor Threat to The Faith, to me, to anybody else, anybody who saw Earl tried to play like Earl. I mean, we're all like, how do you make it sound fast and groovy and double kick? His kick pedal was just so wicked fast. And so it's, that was a high thing to aspire to. And so that's basically what I spent all my time doing, is trying to play like Earl. And then just as a band, I mean, they're that good. I mean, they're just as good as and in live, and to be in a room with them when everybody was, it felt like, so when I was actually, I was actually in ninth grade, I was in a theater program. And I was like, I'm going to be an actor. That's what I want to do. That's what I like to do. And that's what I've been doing. But then I was like, well, actually, and I was in a school of the arts, but then the bad brains happened. And I was like, I love playing music, and this is something that I recognized as being the best thing that on the planet at that time was happening in my town. And I was like, I should probably focus on music, because this is like a clear sign that there's this accessible route to be involved in a scene where everybody is really trying to do the super high level writing and playing, and there's a huge community around it that was super positive, and I was being welcomed into that scene, which was another thing. I was much younger. I'm 4 years younger than Ian, and so they were 18. A lot of that scene was 18 or 19, and some even 20, and I was there as a 14-year-old drummer, and they were like, really welcoming, and for not just me, but my little crew of friends, which was like Guy Picciotto and Mike Hampton and Brian Baker and all that. We were all really young, but there was this already formulated, like, this super positive scene happening. And I think back to that, there's others. I don't know what other scenes were like, but I think the skate and punk rock scene in DC was really, it was fun, and they were kind people, and they were conscientious people, and they weren't all fucked up, and that gave me a way to stop fucking around with drugs and getting into and actually taking music seriously, and actually going to see shows that felt impactful, and then also having Discord Records. I played drums for 3 weeks when I asked Ian if we could be on his compilation and in Deadline, and he was like, sure, just get me something in the next couple of weeks and you're doing it. And I was like, okay, we need to get this band in the studio right now. And we went in and recorded 5 songs, and 3 of those songs ended up on that first Discord compilation, Flex Your Head. And that was, so the record came out and I was 15 years old. I mean, it's just like that whole process all happened very quickly, and it was really, really lovely. I mean, it was really heartwarming, and not to be it's like you don't want to be beaten into the gang. You know what I mean? It's like it was so much more welcoming than that. Anyways, yeah.
I think
it's maintained itself to this day, really.
Which is incredible. A sense of belonging, especially when you're trying to figure out who you are and what you want to contribute to this world, is hugely impactful. So that's incredible.
Yeah.
Did you, throughout that scene, did you know Howard Wolfing?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Howard really, when he saw me, he was working at Melody Records down at DuPont Circle, and he was quite a bit older than me. But I would go in there, and I was like, he's like, what are you looking for? I'm like, I'm looking for MC5 records, but there's only these 3 fucking records. And I got the single, I got all the singles, and I got the records. And he goes, come back next week. And he gave me a tape of Black to Come and all this stuff, all the stuff, the outtakes and the live stuff, a 90-minute tape full of MC5 that I had no idea existed. So he's the guy who took it to the next level with me with the MC5. So yeah, I love Howard.
Howard's the best, man. He's a cool guy.
How do you know Howard?
I work with Howard doing stuff like this. So he sends me a lot of his clients. I talk to a lot of his clients every week. And cool. He just put out this really good book of the discords and discords.
Yeah.
God, I can't remember.
Deceits.
Deceits, yeah, and Deceits and discords. Yeah, it's an incredible book.
Deceits, yeah.
And he's just one of the nicest dudes. Every time I've reached out about anything, he's been super, super cool.
That's what I'm talking about, man. It was like, and it wasn't, I mean, I was particularly talking about like, Ian and this other crew of people who were nice to me, but Howard was also that way. And all the people in the Raz, Ted Nicely, who ended up producing the first few Fugazi records. And he was in Tommy Keane's band, and the Raz was a great band, but they were all older than us, like by quite a bit. But they taught us so much. Like, he showed me Scott Walker and showed me all this stuff, music that I never would have understood, or knew that there was other, interesting artists from the 60s and 70s that I would have overlooked.
Yeah, that's all right, Brendan. Thank you so much. One last question, and you have a career that's been very varied and has had tons of twists and turns and ups and downs. But and I think ultimately, like I find, for me, the definition of success is to continue to do something that drives you. And like, what would you say? Any advice for any musicians, creatives, about how to maintain, keep going through it? And
I mean, I think it's always like, you always have to, I mean, to me, I'm like always halfway up the hill. There's no arriving. You never arrive and somebody puts something around your neck, and you're always working towards something. But even in Fugazi, like, I never felt like I didn't really feel like we were like a big band, because we were always doing the same thing, which is just like, you do the work, you write, make sure that stuff that happens on a daily basis is your primary thing. Like, make sure the writing and the collaboration and all those things are the things that you love to do. Protect that aspect of it, and don't let the outside world like come into that space. And then just go out and do the work and enjoy doing the work, but like keep it real all the time, with other people, and just try not to let it, I see, don't believe the hype about yourself when it's out there. You know what I mean? Just like maintain your relationships. Don't treat your bandmates shitty, and just do as much work as you can for the band and for yourself and for the collective. And also, if you're in a group that you think is good and there's a way to keep it together, try to keep it together. That's a lot of times we let our ego get in the way, and the whole thing will fall apart. And I see people let good bands fall apart, and I'm like, that's a bad look, man. Like, you should be working hard for this band, because that's a good fucking band you've got right there, So that's a big deal to me.
Well, I thank you for those wise words, man. I also want to,
Sure.
I just want to shine how awesome Joe is in your group. I one of the first like real kind of podcast interviews I did out of my local scene was with Joe. And he was really, really cool, and we hit it off. And like I was mentioning before, I teach, and he was like, "Well, if there's any ever projects, and he ended up doing a project with my students, and they made beats, and he picked out chord tone or scale tones, and Joe made bass lines to the kids' beats, which
Oh, wow.
with the kids I work, some of these beats were absolutely insane. Like,
That's so cool.
But
yeah, he's a lovely guy. He really is, and he's like my brother. And it's been 40 years now. So yeah, and James always has the adage. He's like, if the drummer and the bass player are getting along, then the music's going to be just fine. So, and we, for whatever reason, we get along just fine.
Well, that's lovely. That's beautiful, man. Brendan, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Dave. Man, it's been totally fun. Good luck with everything, and I'm going to listen to your Michael Hampton interview with Funkadelic later tonight.
All right, cool. He was really cool, man.
Huge fan of his.
Yo, Spike Spiegel here. You just listened to Zig of the Gig podcast. Keep riding the bebop. See you, Space Cowboy. Bang.